Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at race number 11 at Del Mar on Pacific Classic Saturday. It's the Grade 2 $300,000 Del Mar Handicap. We're going 11 furlongs, 3 turns on the beautiful turf course at Del Mar. Before we take a look at the field, remember the DRF Labor Day sale, up to 50% off all your favorite DRF handicapping products, PPs, picks, clock reports, digital paper, lots more. Learn more, shop.drf.com. Here's the field for the Del Mar Handicap. The number 10 Gold Phoenix, Ashley, won this race in 2022. And there was a question about his ability to handle the distance. He's handled it just right. And he's coming into this race in good form off a graded stakes win at 9 furlongs.
Yeah, simply loves Del Mar. And I think looking at him, he's a horse that when he is good, he is great. He's really put in some big efforts. And there's been some other ones that are okay. And, I think what his connections have done really well is when they're not really happy with the performance, they regroup and they give him the time off and he comes back and he's recharged and ready to go. So nice to see him get that win last time out off the layoff.
Well, if you believe pace makes the race, our Timeform US pace projector could be key because I have to agree, I don't see any speed in this race at all. The 4 missed the cut's been campaigning on dirt since coming over from Europe, and he's a horse that's been chasing fast fractions. I don't know if that's his preferred running style. Maybe the 2 Crosby Beach, who was up close going a mile 2 starts back, will make the running because he didn't break very well last time.
I would think Crosby Beach might be engaged early. It's funny when you look at this field, there are times that they decide to be forwardly placed, I think, depending on other decisions made by other riders and connections in the race in terms of position. And sometimes they just found themselves forwardly placed. But there's a lot of horses in here that typically will be flying light.
Horse breaking from the inside is the number 1, Win the Day. He is winless on turf after 4 tries. A lot of questions to answer. Class, he hasn't raced since February at Aqueduct. Distance as well. He's done some good things on synthetic. He's done some good things on dirt. Turf is a question mark against this caliber of competition.
Yeah, he's 50-1 on the morning line. I think there's a reason for it. But Doug O'Neill and his connections, they're never afraid to try different things and try tough spots. I do think it's a tough spot for him. He does have the 2 efforts at Del Mar, both being at a mile and 3/8, and he actually raced well. But since then, he's just got that 1 win, and it was, his second career win. This is a very difficult spot for him.
The 2 Crosby Beach seems to be improving slowly with each start. His last race was pretty good. His second level allowance going a mile and an eighth at Del Mar. He's going to finish 3rd in this race. He didn't break very well. The pace was very fast. And let's be honest, the winner of this race is doing everything he can to hand this off to somebody else. He's bobbing, he's weaving, he's saying hi to the fans, and Crosby Beach still is only able to get 3rd. So now he's got to do more at a longer distance.
Yeah, it's tough. I think you look at this one of 2 ways. There's the way that you described it, which I agree with. There's a lot going on there that's probably not ideal, but the biggest thing is he does miss the break early on, and he did have some pace to run at. You would have thought maybe he could have done a little bit better in there, but the bettors didn't think so. I think it was an okay 3rd place performance, and that was going a mile and an eighth. He has gone longer in his career, and he's actually raced well at a mile and a quarter. So just kind of looking at his, trajectory so far this year, I wonder if he can take a step forward here at the longer distance.
The number 3, None Above the Law, is a very likable Calbred. And I think a lot of folks forget that he won the Grade 2 Del Mar Derby as a 3-year-old going a mile and an eighth. And ever since then, they really have been reluctant to try him at that distance or longer. So now they're going to stretch him out of a 3rd place finish against Calbreds. I think he's a horse that has a chance to at least hit the board at a price here. And if he runs his lifetime best, maybe he could threaten for more.
I think he could get a piece. I think looking at his turf races, I mean, his form in general is muddied. They've made a big effort to maybe try different things with him. He's traveled all around California, dirt, turf, all sorts of distances. And maybe, as you've said, he did have a good race at a mile and an eighth. Maybe they're going back to the basics. They're going to try something, try him going long once again. I think looking at some of those races where he's gone longer, I've liked the position that he's been in. He hasn't been too close to it. He hasn't been too far off of it. And he comes in here, I think, off a pretty good 3rd place performance going 2 turns on the turf.
The four missed the cut's going to return to turf for the first time since shipping to North America and being placed with John Sadler. A mile and a quarter will be no problem. A mile and 3/8 will be no problem for this horse. He's won twice at a mile and a quarter overseas. And the last time we saw him on the turf was in the big turf race on the Saudi Cup undercard. He was probably in a little bit tough there. If that pace projector is correct and he gets loose and is able to relax, he's in with a chance here.
I agree. I think if he gets loose here, he's tough. I'm not sure what to make out of him in the sense that maybe they wanted to try something new. He'd never really raced on dirt, so they gave it a shot, but they had those two cracks at the dirt. Now they're going back to the turf, which they do know is a surface that he's 3 for 4 on. I just didn't know what to make out of him. I mean, he could be, as you said, he could be loose in here and he could be tough, but I don't know. I thought last time out and even the time before that, there were things that I would have expected just a tad more from him.
The 5 Cathkin Peak goes out for trainer Phil D'Amato. He has been so consistent throughout his career without winning the big one. He's placed, I think, 5 times in graded stakes competition. His last race, the Wicker, I wonder if we could make excuses for. A, it was his first start off of a lengthy layoff. B, the pace just seemed electric in that race. And you saw horses like Du Jour and Flavius come from mid-pack or farther behind. And Cathkin Peak just might have been too close to that pace. I'm expecting him to be a lot tighter with that under his girth.
I think he was too close to the pace because when you look at his races going down, he's typically further off of it. But there have been a couple of races where the pace has been moderate. He's been close to it and he's raced okay. And I just don't know, looking at the Wicker, what the game plan was going into it in terms of getting a trip. But there's been a couple of times where he's been forwardly placed, and when there's a pace meltdown, he can't hang around. And I believe if we looked at the time form pace projection, he had the late flag on him, right? That little LP flag. So you wonder if in here, based on what we saw 2 and 3 starts back, some really nice efforts, if he's just going to let everyone else do their thing early and try to make one run in the stretch.
He seems like a kind of difficult horse to ride as well. He often pulls hard and is eager and is sometimes rank in the early portion of his races. So I think it's
Mhm.
imperative for them to cover this horse up, get him relaxed, and maybe he can come with that strong kick. Awfully Naughty is going to have no issues with this distance. He came back rolling in 2023 for Michael McCarthy, winning the Whittingham a grade 2 at a mile and a quarter, and then the San Luis Rey, a grade 3, going a mile and a half. In the San Luis Rey, I thought he was just much the best. He did not break very well. He was in tight heading into the final turn, and he still gets it done.
Yeah, he loves to run for days, mile and a quarter, all the way to a mile and 3/4. I know he was second, but it was still a good performance overall. So as you've said, this distance, anything in between those distances that I mentioned, he's going to be fine with. I think he's a horse that he really shows up in just about all of his starts, especially in the past year. He's a consistent type. So I like him in this spot. I think he's done enough in his last couple that suggest, even though he's going to have some new rivals and some old rivals, he should be just fine.
The 7-9-11 Turbo is a very intriguing new face to the graded stakes division here in Southern California. He's won 4 in a row, 5 of his last 6, and his win last time out, I know it was only a first level allowance, but it was key because he showed he could stretch out. It opens up whole new avenues for the great Neil Drysdale. 9-11 Turbo got a nice trip in here. He did stay close to the pace, but he really finishes it off beautifully.
He is so intriguing. You talk about horses that they take a while to get that graduation score, and sometimes the light bulb goes on, and that has completely been the case for him. I mean, we're talking about a horse who didn't break his maiden until he was 5 years old, and maybe he had some setbacks along the way, but you don't see horses then do what he's done since then at very competitive numbers and at big numbers nonetheless. So I think he's a wild card in this spot. I think if anyone's, liking the value that he might offer in the race, I can understand why. He's been pretty close to the pace in his last couple, and as you've mentioned, the win streak was good. I know he got disqualified, but he's crossed the wire now in 4 starts in a row.
As You'll Coast is the number 8 going out for Bob Baffert, who's going to try turf. This horse has only raced once previously on the grass. He's done good things on synthetic. He's done good things on dirt. He comes off a runner-up effort going a mile and a half. They ran him a mile and a half in his first start off about an 8-month layoff, so he might have needed that race.
Dirt to turf isn't something that you see Bob doing often, or at least not finding a lot of success with that angle. His last turf race you mentioned, long time ago. We're talking 3 years ago, over 3 years ago at this point. So you wonder if it's just they're trying something different, or maybe in his case, they have made this, decision to take him longer, right? A mile and a half and a mile and an eighth. Maybe it's a distance thing as well. Maybe this is the race that came up and they thought, you know what? Let's just give it a shot. He should like the distance. The surface will be the only real test that he has to answer.
The 9 is Planetario. He'll run all day long. He won the San Juan Capistrano 2 starts back at 14 furlongs, and he looked like he had plenty left at the tank crossing the wire. They tried him in the UN last time out, and I'm just not sure that trip really worked out for him. It looked like he got shuffled back a little bit at about the 5/16 pole. He had to drop down inside. All in all, Mike Smith did what he could to save as much ground as possible. For an instant, it looked like he was going to sneak into third, and he just got tired late.
Yeah, I was disappointed with the stretch run. I think you have summed it up in terms of the trip. Mike Smith did everything that he could, and it just didn't pan out with the way the horses were moving in front of him. So I can't fault him. I just, as I said, I wish I would have shown a little bit more in the stretch, and he was tired at that point. And I was surprised to see him maybe tired. Maybe it was just the trip and kind of being exhausted from that, but he was cutting back from his other races. But as you've mentioned, he can run all day long. He's been a fun horse to watch. Also, his workout tab the past 3 months of how he's prepped for these races. Richard Mandela's done a great job, but it just didn't pan together for him last time out. But go 2 starts back, he looked very, very good.
And here's the defending champ, the 10 Gold Phoenix. You got to appreciate this horse's versatility and class. He wins this race last year going 1 mile and 3/8. He wins the Kilroe Mile in his first start off the layoff this year. He wins this race, the Eddie Reed, going 1 mile and an eighth. And he got a really nice ride in this race. He was able to save valuable ground on the far turn. He tipped out without losing too much ground. I don't love that he doesn't change leads in the stretch, but he didn't have to. He was much the best.
Yeah. No, he didn't have to at all. This was a huge performance, and I agree with the trip. I think the trip was everything in this race because when you look at his last couple of wins, his last 2 really, he's been just a tad closer to the pace than he has been, and I think that's been a little bit of a difference maker. Obviously, he's been in some tough spots in between then as well, and the waters have been deep, but the time off did him well. He's coming here off a month's rest or just, a couple days over that and has a bullet drill, so really hard to knock off that most recent effort.
And perhaps lurking just a little bit under the radar for D'Amato and Kent DeZormo is the 11 Cash Equity, a winner 2 starts back when dangled for the $80,000 claiming option. A little bit too little too late last time out in the Wicker, beaten 2 lengths. I'm concerned he's adopted this one-run late kicking style, which could work against him in a paceless race. But you'll note that win 4 starts back, he got close.
He got very close, and the fractions were moderate, right? The race played well to the front runners that day, but they've done the mile. I know he has the win 2 back at the mile, but there's a little bit of pace for him to run at, nothing crazy. I think the biggest disadvantage you have pointed out, he is a true closer. He comes from far back, and just looking at the other running styles, and here I just think there are horses that are going to get a better trip and a better position early on, and that's going to put him at a disadvantage. Regardless of his talent, he's going to be at a disadvantage.
It's a superb card at Del Mar on Saturday, Pacific Classic Saturday. This is a fantastic race, the Del Mar Handicap. We might get a runner or 2 for the Breeders' Cup Turf out of this race. Let's take a look at our top selections in the Del Mar Cap. We're both going with Gold Phoenix. He's consistent, he's versatile, he doesn't have to be pace compromised, and I just think he's coming into this race the right way.
I agree. I mean, I really loved the effort that we showed the replay from. So I used him on top. I think I was debating if I could get awfully naughty in the top spot here, but I just had a little bit more confidence in Gold Phoenix and his recent form.
Yeah, I'm a little worried I didn't have Awfully Naughty a little bit more prominent in my picks because he's a proven commodity at this distance, and he usually fires a good shot. 10-6-9-5 for Ashley, 10-9-6-11 for me in the Del Mar Handicap. Best of luck on Pacific Classic Saturday.